Hello and welcome to Backlinking, the PKM podcast. In today's podcast episode, I wanted to talk about something I found really interesting and something I'm participating in myself, which is this rise of new analog tools. This doesn't just apply to productivity. I've seen it in many other spaces. People choosing dumb phones instead of regular smartphones. People choosing e-ink readers instead of using regular phones. People moving away from like things like Kindle, Kobo, and moving to actual actual books, and the same applies for things like productivity tools, moving away from digital calendars to analog ones, or digital note-taking apps to analog ones, people doing bullet journaling instead of task management. And I've been really diving into this idea lately because I find it super interesting for several different reasons. Because I like the way I got into this recently. As you might know, I've done bullet journaling. It has its positives and negatives, and I've been using analog tools together with my digital ones, but like the center of my productivity system, or the center of the things I do, have my digital tools, and I've like used my analog tools, my three notebooks, so a pocket notebook, a five size notebook, and a traveler's regular size, which is somewhere between. Um, I've been using them like to help my digital system work better. And there are a lot of benefits from digital systems, like efficiency and things just going a lot faster, automations. Like I can read on my Kobo, and I can get those highlights into my note taking app using something like Readwise, which I am still using. And I I really enjoy these digital tools, and I still think that like a digital calendar in today's day and age is a must-have, especially in knowledge work where we have a lot of meetings, or at least some meetings, which changes a lot, and you just can't keep up with pen and paper. And for a lot of people, like even task management on pen and paper doesn't work at all. But I have found that I want to use pen and paper for some things, and this comes back to this whole idea of using older, more analog tools, because sometimes that isn't true. All the time, I feel like my life is moving too fast for me to actually experience the things I'm doing. It's all about efficiency all the time, and a lot of the time I feel like when we talk about productivity, what we are actually talking about is efficiency, like how much more can you do? And we have this counter movement, mainly led by people like Carl Newport, he wrote the book, I can't remember, Slow Productivity. I should remember it. I am currently reading it, but Cal Newport wrote this book, and he's written a lot of great books. Digital Minimalism is another one, but people like him are leading this like slow productivity, focus on your quality. Don't think about efficiency all of the time. It isn't all about doing more. This whole like there is what I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of people like in this group, and where I found myself was that I felt like my life was going too fast. I felt like I took a lot of notes which I never revisited, or I didn't think about them any longer, or I just jumped into the next idea. And in this time where we have AI, we have all of this automation stuff, and everything can just happen without us having to think about it. I took a step back because I felt like it wasn't benefiting my thinking. So a lot of the things I do when I write or film this YouTube videos or just create content is that I sit down, I look at applications, and I think like, is this good? Is this bad? Why? And sometimes I, like in this podcast episode, I talk more generally about the state of things, which requires me to think. And lately, I've struggled to do that. I wouldn't say that like I have stopped thinking, or I've outsourced my thinking to AI, which is a whole nother problem for another podcast episode. But I felt like my thinking muscle, like the ability to think through things and sit down with an idea for a long amount of time and just think through it, come up with more ideas, build on top of it. It wasn't there, or it wasn't as good as it used to be. And no wonder, like I never sit down to think about things. Like after I was done with university, I've read books, but I haven't like jumped into something deeply, jumped into a topic deeply and engaged with it deeply. Like that is something I've just stopped doing because I feel like I don't have the time, because there is always something more to do. There is always a need to be more efficient. So I decided to go back to my notebooks, and I decided to like do an experiment and change things up where I would still use digital tools because I really like digital tools. I find them really fun, and I think there is a place for efficiency because sometimes in our lives in 2025, like we need to move fast. The world is much faster now than it was 100 years ago. At least that is what it feels like. I wasn't around 100 years ago, but the world feels much faster now, even much faster than 10 years ago when I was a little younger. Like with the rise of AI, it feels like we can get more done more quickly. So there are times where efficiency is needed. And I'm not against efficiency. That's not what I'm saying. Um, I'm just saying that this efficiency we have at work, we don't necessarily need to bring that home with us. Like, you might need to be efficient at work because you have a project with a deadline, but you don't need to be efficient with your vacation, for example, which actually happened to me. Like, I feel like I need to be efficient in everything I do, which isn't weird at all because it gets usual that it starts to become your way of thinking. So I needed to add friction to my system, and that is exactly what I've done. Uh, I've added a lot of friction actually, or at least some. S- I've started to look at it differently. So currently, I am using capacities, which I have been playing around with since I went to Greece in the summer because my old note taking app would not work on the plane, even though it had offline mode, which was a nightmare because I'm terrified of flying. And one of the things I do to make it easier on myself is to sit down and write because I like writing. I get uh, my anxiety goes away when I write. It brings calm into my life. So that was my plan. I wanted to sit down and I wanted to write. But I could not do that because my note taking app didn't work, which gave me anxiety. So I got really angry and I switched applications because reliability is really important, especially in offline. Especially in my case, that is highly personal. Like I don't fly a lot, I fly sometimes, but I need my note taking app to work on flights because I need to sit down and work through my ideas, think, and write. That is the one place where I'm able to like take things calmly and go through all of my notes because I need something else to focus on than being inside of a plane. But enough about me being scared of flying. So I went to Capacities. Capacities has been working well for me ever since. So that was back in July, actually. So it's been a few months. I have used it almost every single day, but I haven't been paying for the pro plan all of the months. I went 2 or 3 weeks off and then paid again when they released the Readwise integration because I didn't necessarily need um, all of the pro stuff, but I really want the Readwise integration, so I went ahead and paid for it, and I try to pay for these applications whenever I can. So again, back on the pro plan now, and instead of capacities or my note taking app or my calendar, which is currently Proton Calendar, because I moved a lot of my uh, business stuff email and also my private email over to Proton, which means that I now use Proton Calendar, which doesn't integrate with everything. So I'm using Proton Calendar. Um, I am still using those. Like the calendar, the digital calendar is probably the most important. That is like the main place I put things because things change a lot. And even though I want to live a slower life, I can't expect that from everyone else. So digital calendar stays, but and it's a huge part, like stays as a main productivity tool. While capacities is a really important productivity tool, but the main part of my productivity system now is analog tools, 3 notebooks. So I do bullet journaling and I also do commonplacing and I also do like regular journaling. And what I mean by like analog being my main part of my system is that my single source of truth is now in one of my notebooks. So everything goes into my notebooks first, then I move them somewhere else, or I do like project management. I mainly do in my notebooks. Sometimes when I need it, I switch it over. It is, I will need to do a deep dive into this, but it is more of a fluent system. Like there aren't really clear rules, but there are clear rules, if that makes sense. Like it is really hard to explain, but like I might create a note about a project that lives in my digital tool, but I also will have all of my tasks in an analog system. And I've spent a lot of time trying to build this. Like, I even I could even say that I started this back when I did bullet journaling the first time. Like, how can we use? And went through my older notebooks, and I actually started thinking about this like the first time I did bullet journaling back in, I think it was summer of 2023, which is now over 2 years ago. How can we use digital and analog tools together? That's what I've been trying to figure out, and that has been really important to me. And I think I've figured out a way to do both. Again, calendar is a little outside of this because calendar will always, the digital calendar will always be a main part of your system. But what I've done differently when it comes to task management is that I decide on paper what I'm going to do, doing bullet journal style journaling. And when I've decided to do something in the morning, like I do my planning in my bullet journal the evening before, the morning after, I will actually go ahead and I will schedule them into my calendar uh, because it gives me a little bit more friction to think about things. And the main reason for this is to kind of reverse something called, or something some people call AI brain rot. And I'm reading from an article from the desk. One of the founders of My Mind actually wrote this. And it is called like how to reverse AI brain rot. And it has a couple of things. So stop chasing frictionless convenience, resist over automation, value process over result, choose depth over speed always, preserve human rituals like long conversations that seem to go nowhere, handwritten notes, physical exercise, or craftsmanship. Limit dependencies on algorithms. I've actually deleted social media as well. Make your own decisions, do your own research, think for yourself. Don't let algorithms choose your books, films, music. Reclaim unstructured browsing. Wander off the For You path. And that all of this basically means just live slower, which is what I've been trying to do with my productivity tools. Like I've gone ahead and I've deleted social media. I only use it on the web now, except for like YouTube. I use a lot because I listen to a lot of podcasts, but um, I have deleted things like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X even. I don't actually use. I actually have Blue Sky, but I don't like Blue Sky, so it gets to stay. There aren't any people on Blue Sky, so that one gets to stay. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that I've tried to go towards living more slowly, and I'm not sure if I will do this like forever. It will be something I will try out for a while now. And my like I will try this out for a while. The social media stuff I will actually not download again because that isn't necessarily about not scrolling. It is more about I post on social media. I will, no matter what, check my check my notifications several times each day. Like I will post a video and I will check it 15 times to see how it has performed the first hour. That is what I'm trying to stop, not necessarily trying to stop like infinite scrolling and For You page stuff and things like that. But basically, this digital versus analog in my case now. This podcast ended up being more about slow living, but I think digital versus analog is also about that. It is about in which parts of our life do we want to live slowly, mindfully, and think about things, and in what parts of our life do we actually value more convenience, more automation, more speed. Where do we need that and where do we need mindfulness? Because I'm pretty sure that everyone needs more uh in again in this day and age, everyone needs a little bit more mindfulness in their life. It is just about deciding where can we have that mindfulness, where can we go deeper, where can we like value process over result, or where can we resist over automation, where can we do all of these things, um, where do we need machines to help us do things, and where can we like sit down and write with pen and paper. And it isn't necessarily that it has to be with pen and paper. I just find that a lot easier because when I'm writing digitally, it is so easy to like choose convenience to create automations whenever I need them. But with pen and paper, like it isn't possible to create a Zapier automation for pen and paper. I'm sure someone could come up with something, taking a picture of your note uh, and creating an automation based on that. But um, my point here is that it is much more friction to like try to automate pen and paper, and I'm really lazy. You might be a lot more disciplined than I am, but I can't stop myself from doing that. It has also actually helped my shiny new tool syndrome a lot. Again, speaking of discipline, I will change applications if I rely just on the applications. While if I uh, if I rely on pen and paper, it is much easier to stick with the same application. Um, and this becomes really personal because it is really personal, like productivity, note taking, especially mindfulness is personal. It is supposed to be personal. That is the whole point of this. Like, if everyone had the same system, I'm sure that 99% of people would like have their system not working for them, because we are different and we need to do things differently. And I found that adding analog tools actually helps me with slow living, which is something I'm trying to get better at. And I think like that is the point. In my case, analog means slower, means slow living, means going more slowly, means adding more friction, means thinking about things. And it is also a lot easier for me to pick up and go through my notebooks because they are physical. There is this tactile feeling of like touching a notebook, opening it up. Whereas in my like in my digital tools, that is a lot harder. I find it a lot harder to sit down and go through my notes. And I've also learned that like paper will last longer than my digital notes. So I've changed applications many, many times. We've been through this. But every time I've changed applications, I've lost a few notes. So if I want something to like last forever, like my weekly review where I write down my follower count, for example, which means a lot to me and is really motivating to me, I've lost some of the ones from last year, which is really annoying. Um, so that is something I've moved to analog. And it is also the last thing I will touch on is like if I have analog productivity tools or analog notes, especially, I own those notes. There is no company that can like access my notes. There is no company that forces me to download my notes in a format that is hard to take with me. Like things like that has also gotten a lot more important to me lately. I've been diving into this privacy ownership uh, stuff for a YouTube video, which might or might not come. But I'm at least working through it, and I think that like covers the main reasons for why I've chosen a lot more analog tools. Again, analog tools are important, and digital tools are still a really, really important part of my productivity system. It's just that I blend the two a lot more now, and I choose analog for slow, and I choose like digital for efficiency, and I try to be a lot more slow than efficient. I think that covers it. If you have any questions, leave them down below, and I will try to get to them as soon as I can. Thank you so, so much for watching today's or listening to today's podcast episode.